Welcome to the Texas Conflict Coach radio program. If you've ever experienced or engaged in destructive or unresolved conflict, then you know it leads to broken relationships, distrust, and damaging results. Our program will help you manage and resolve conflict effectively with strategies, valuable resources, and support. Since 2009, our radio program hosted guest experts from around the globe sharing their perspectives, experiences, and expertise while giving you food for thought. If you can't listen live, then download and listen to any of our 300-plus podcasts in our library at texasconflictcoach.com. So sit back, relax, or join the conversation every Tuesday evening, or tweet us at TXConflictCoach.
As part of May's National Family Month, I will be talking with Dr. Patricia Adams about the unique challenges of military families, 3 building blocks for happier, healthier relationships based on her book, The ABCs of Change. Now, Dr. Adams has discovered over the many years a common thread that binds us together, the power that relationships have in our lives. Now, through research, Dr. Adams began to unravel the complexity of relationships and to uncover the basic principles upon which successful relationships are built. And by redefining these principles, she has developed simple and practical applications that those in military service, both current and former, and their families can use in their everyday lives. So who is Dr. Patricia Adams? She is the president of Zeitgeist Wellness Group and a family therapist. She is one of only 10 women nationwide to be named 2011 Entrepreneurial Winning Women by Ernst & Young. And as a subject matter expert, Dr. Adams has more than 16 years of experience as a licensed marriage and family therapist. She is a certified mediator and crisis intervention specialist, and as I mentioned, she is also the author of The ABCs of Change, 3 Building Blocks to Happy Relationships. Now, we do invite you to call in with your questions or comments. You can do that by calling 347-324-3591. So if you're listening live by a computer, again, 347-324-3591. If you have a comment or question, if you are on the computer, you're probably at blogtalkradio.com/Texas-conflict-coach, and we do have the chat room open. Just scroll down the page there on our show page, and you'll see the chat room is open to also post your comments and questions there. So, Patricia, welcome to our program.
Thank you so much, Patty, for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, we want to get to know you a little bit. And one of the first questions I remember asking you is what does Zeitgeist mean, and what motivated you to do the work you do now?
Well, back in the day when I was just starting out my career in the business of psychology, I wanted to make sure that I named the company something unique, something that had meaning, something that had substance. So in Psychology 101 back at UTSA in San Antonio, I heard this word, zeitgeist, and I thought, oh, that's an interesting word, and did some research on the word, and in our studies just learned that it truly just was designed the essence of who I was, and that basically is nothing's going to happen until it's time for it to happen. And if you break the word down, it's a German word, and Geist is spirit in German, and Zeit is time. So if you look it up in the dictionary, it literally translates that nothing's going to happen until it's time for it to happen. And oftentimes I work with my clients, it's like sometimes they're just trying to force something to happen, and it doesn't often work that way. But when it's time for it to happen, it will happen. And our job is to be ready for that experience, whatever that is. So I just fell in love with the essence of what the word zeitgeist means. And first opportunity I had to name a company, that's what I chose, Zeitgeist. And it has really been a conversation piece as you discovered even yourself. The first thing you said was, well, what does that mean, and how did you come to name your business that? So it's done exactly what I thought it would do.
Well, that's awesome. And so, you know, I love the phrase, nothing's going to happen until it's time. So at some point it was time for you to be motivated to do the truly remarkable work that you do. So what motivated you to do that? And explain a little bit about what it is, because you do a number of things as a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Yes, I do. And when I first started out as a practicing marriage and family therapist, I saw clients one-on-one. I talked to them about their families. I talked to them about their careers. I talked to them about having children. I talked about them about grief and loss. I talked to them about adopting children and being adopted. Just so many issues that come up when you're a marriage and family therapist. And as I evolved and as the practice of what I did evolved, it became I needed a team of supporters to help me in helping my clients. And so our company name is literally Zeitgeist Wellness Group. So we are an outpatient behavioral health clinic, and we provide every single piece of wellness and behavioral health for our clients that you can imagine, from massage therapy, acupuncture, nutritionists, personal trainers, health risk assessments. Chaplains are also in our practice. Anything that supports our clients in their overall mental health and well-being, we do that. We have psychiatrists. We have testing psychologists. So the purpose was to create a one-stop wellness behavioral health environment. We hear the word wellness so many times in so many arenas today. We don't know if it's nutritional supplements or if it's the doctor's office, but Zeitgeist is strictly an outpatient behavioral health environment that says we want to encourage you to be involved in all areas of wellness as it relates to your mental health. So that's what we do, and we have been very successful in the fact that you can go in one place to those different modalities, and clients really like that instead of being told, you're gaining a little weight, you're sounding a little sluggish, you maybe not sitting in your chair correctly. Let's do some manipulation with the massage therapist, or let's invite the personal trainer in to use your office space to show you how to get some exercise in while maybe you're sitting at your day job for 8 hours. So that's why the business is so encompassing right now.
The word that comes to mind for me is very holistic. It looks at the whole and not just one little element. And so I love the way that you have packaged that as a way to really help the whole of the client that you might be working with.
That's a good point, Patty, because the first thing you learn in psychotherapy in your training is that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So for us, if I can create a whole centralized being of who you are, that's better than just saying, we're here, just take this medication, or let's do this psychological testing, and let this define who you are without adding some other supportive services around that. So that's why we encompass all of those particular modalities to help our clients to be well, and that's what they want. That's why they come to us, and that's why their physicians or clinics or their employers might refer to them to a facility like Zeitgeist Wellness Group.
Okay, very good. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, this whole month is National Family Month, and so we're doing our whole month of May series focused on families and the conflict that might arise. And one of the things we've not touched base on in our programs over the years is around military families. And San Antonio being Military City, USA, and one of your specialty areas of many is working with military families. So how did you get started working with military families?
That's an interesting question. I was studying at St. Mary's University, working on my master's degree, and I was basically one of the first licensed marriage and family therapy associates at the time that was afforded an opportunity to do my internship at BAMSI at the time. BAMSI now it's called SAMSI. So I was indoctrinated in the military culture as a very young practicum student, and then my post-internship while I was in graduate school. And it just opened my eyes to the differences in what my civilian home looked like versus what a military home looked like. And I was intrigued by it. So I did a lot of studying on the family dynamics of military families. People always ask you when you live in a military town, was your father in the military? Was your uncle in the military? And people couldn't believe, you don't have anybody in the military? No. Your husband? No, no one's in the military. But just the essence of who they are, what they do, and how they adapt and change. It was just a great opportunity to learn and practice the skill sets of being a marriage and family therapy in an environment that's constantly evolving. And so that's where I received my training, and I've just been intrigued, involved with it ever since. So now about 20 years.
That's a long time. Now, not all listeners. We have listeners who are all from all over the world. You said BAMSI. What does that stand for?
BAMSI, Brooke Army Medical Center. Now it's called SAMSI, Southern Army Military Command Center. So that name has changed since I was in graduate school over 20 years ago.
Okay, very good. That way people understood what that meant. So over the 20 years, which you even have seen not only an evolvement of your own practice and working with military families, but even 20 years, I would imagine military families or the dynamics of military families have changed. But say a little bit more about how does your work with military families differ from your work with non-military families? And I know we're going to get into some unique conflict situations, but start wherever you feel you're most energetic to do.
Well, the difference with them is, for example, my family, where I call this a civilian home. So you have a husband of 26 years with 4 children, 20, 17, 15, and 6. And in the 26 years of our marriage, we've spent 25 of those years in one place, San Antonio. We've lived in 3 homes in San Antonio, a starter home in an apartment, and then a starter home, and now the home we're in now. We've been in this home for almost 5 years. So we lived in our middle home for 11 years. But you look at a military family, they could have lived in the last 20 years in 5 or 6 locations. Then you look at the dynamics of war. When I first started out as a marriage and family therapist, we weren't dealing with war issues. Now you're dealing with multiple deployments. So you have father or mother, whichever one's the active duty service member, that moves around because of that. So then you have families missing key moments. I was speaking with my husband this morning, and I've got 3 birthdays. You wouldn't believe this. 3 birthdays this week. So the 6-year-old has a birthday, the father has a birthday, and the 20-year-old all have birthdays within 2 days of each other. And this is the first time in 20 years. My oldest son, who now, by the way, serves our country in the Navy, so we are now military family members ourselves. But in 20 years of his life, I have not missed a birthday. But there are military family members that not only miss birthdays, they miss births. They miss grandma's birthday. They miss quinceañeras. They miss so many things. So the dynamics of a military family, they have many more transitions, many more movements of life than you and I maybe ever experienced. They have a phenomenon of single parenthood that's really not single parenthood. You know, they're joint, they're married, but oftentimes one of those parents is in the role of a single parent for many more times than a couple like Roosevelt and I may ever be. So those things are quite different in military families versus non-military families.
So a number, of issues, and a lot of us who are not in the military, I'm from a civilian home for the most part, and, you hear about those who go to deployment and separation, and you see certainly the joyful reunions on television, and you see those things. And so we hear those. So what are some of the unique conflict situations that occur with military families? And, I can make an assumption that it has to do with all of these different elements you talked about, but what are the ones that are common to military families but might be unique to non-military? Why don't you start with that?
Well, I call it psychological movement, too. So when you're separated because of multiple deployments or even just going TDY, in the States, there's a psychological movement of who's actually in control, if you will, of the home. How do you divide up who's responsible for taking out the trash or bringing in the trash or picking up the mail or listening to the voice messages on the phone at home to get the calls in? Who's responsible for the finances? Who do the children really listen to when one of the parents is gone and then they come back? Those are unique things that those of us who are non-military families, we don't have to address in that way. because there's sort of a stabilization, if you will, because the family is more intact versus having the family just join it as often as they do because of TDYs, because of multiple deployments and things like that. So those are really the unique things I see a great deal in my practice, especially when it comes around conflict. You know, who's going to manage the money, who's actually in control, and I don't mean control in a very negative way, just who do the children listen to, and how do you keep the children from trying to come between the parents? And there's a unique way of making sure that there's balance in the home so that when that one parent does come back, everything just can kind of go back to the way it was. Because I don't know if you have children, but sometimes, man, they really can test our patience and try to play one parent against the other one. And we have to really make sure we manage that a little bit more in military families because
in military, yeah, and we know that's a typical dynamic in most families. You know, if I don't get the right answer that I want, you know, from one parent, then I'm going to go to the other. Which reminds me that in today's technology world, more and more military families, I would imagine, stay more connected virtually because of Skype and Google Hangouts and all those technology that now allows us to do that fairly easy and to see, you know, our parents. And then the second element that came up for me is that more and more women over time is serving our country. So a lot of times I imagine dad's at home, but it's mom who's been deployed. So, you know, so those dynamics seem, the connection's still there, I'm wondering, or is there still that unique disconnect even though they're still seeing dad or mom on the Skype, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it's different. And you're having a birthday party, you know, that often comes up. And certainly dad's Skyping in because it's a birthday party, and you've seen the ones even on TV where, you know, somebody's Skyping in for the birth of a baby. But there is just something that's a little different about that physical touch, that physical presence versus the camera that's attaching and pulling these folks together. And we have to deal with that. And people talk about the nature of missing that physical contact with that person, you know, being able to hear them breathe or to feel that touch, you know, or get that warm feeling that they get if you're with them personally versus through Skype. And oftentimes, you know, we have to talk to them, too, about when you're away at deployment, that is your job. So you wouldn't necessarily text someone in the middle of the day all the time while they're at work or Skype them in the middle of the day while they're at work. And so sometimes we have to really be careful with our military members that we're not defocusing them from the job that they're called to do while we, the family members, are texting them the minute Johnny won't put his shoes on correctly, or maybe he was being rude to the parent that's at home, so we're going to try to get that parent involved. So we have to be able to teach, again, some really good coping skills for those families to be able to deal with those kinds of things instead of pulling that service member in every time that something may be going awry in the home. We have to step in as conflict resolutioners, if you will, for them so that people can say, oh, you know, here are some techniques that I can learn myself to help me get through this with my children when that spouse is away.
Well, I'm glad you brought up tips because we're going to talk about strategies next. So for those who are just joining us, you are listening to the Texas Conflict Coach Blog Talk Radio program. And I'm speaking with Dr. Patricia Adams with the Zeitgeist Wellness Group here in San Antonio. And so we've been talking about the unique challenges that military families face, everything from transition and being really fairly nomadic in many situations over a number of years, living in a number of locations, and when they're being deployed, whether mom or dad being deployed, missing all the key moments, and single parenthood, and where do kids focus their energies, who's really in control of the home in the sense of the day-to-day kind of operations, if you will. So we've been talking about those unique challenges, and so you know, you've written a book, The ABCs for Military Families, and the ABCs of Change. So what are some of these strategies? Because you've been working with military families now for 20 years, almost 20 years. And so what strategies have you found as a marriage and family therapist that works with these families?
Well, let me try to explain these ABCs really quick. I tell people in my work, I've seen three basic things that people bring to any and all relationships. And A, B, C is like going to school. You remember when you went to school, Patty, and the teacher said, well, you reading and writing and arithmetic, then you can do just about anything. Those are the foundations to learning: reading, writing, and math. So as I'm working with couples and families, I'm going, what are the three common elements to any and all relationships? And I discovered it was really as simple as ABC. A is our affect. That's the emotionality that we bring to any and all situations. Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm sad, sometimes I'm frustrated, sometimes I'm grieving, sometimes I'm ambivalent, which means I don't know which way to go. The A is my emotion. It's everything that I feel. And do you know, Patty, that sometimes people don't even realize that they're feeling a certain way because of the next two building blocks that we're going to talk about. So I have to be able to help them to find the words to describe what they feel and where those feelings come from. So A is the first building block. That's your affect. The second building block is the B, and the B are the behaviors that you exhibit when you feel a certain way. So I'm mad today, and you know the whole proverbial one, I'm going to kick the dog because I'm upset. That's kind of old. And nowadays, I've seen on YouTube, the dad was so angry with his daughter a couple of months ago because she wasn't listening, so he was beating up her computer. That's his emotional reaction to the fact that his daughter basically did not do something that he desired. So his behavioral response was, I'm going to beat up the computer because we, the parent, bought them the computer, and sometimes they use the computer in ways we don't want them to use the computer, or the iPad, or the, those little phones that they have that do everything for them, the little iPhones.
So the behavior, smartphones, yes.
So the behavior is the next thing. So A is your affect. Those are your emotions. B is the behavior, your reactions too, maybe what you're feeling or maybe not what you're not feeling. And the last C, the last one, the C of the ABC, is your cognitions. And in our business, cognition is a fancy word for what you think. So my question for people is, where did you get that belief system from that it was okay to kick the dog? Or where did you get the belief system from that it was okay to wash your kid's mouth out with soap? It's maybe a disciplinary action. I've seen people try to do that with their kids, and the idea about timeout and all the history of what we believe and what we don't believe. So we tell people, if you can understand these three principles, the reading, writing, and arithmetic, if you will, the ABCs of psychology, or the ABCs of relating is what we call it, then you can have a healthier, happier relationship. And the thing about building blocks is, as children, what do children do with building blocks? Well, they stack them on top of each other. So if you take these three letters, A, B, C, and stack them on top of each other 6 different ways, you're going to find one way that spells a word. And if you find that word out and read the book and do a little history and work around that, you will find that your A, B, C stacked the correct way can put you on the road of life with yourself and anybody that you're with so that you can move in a direction of healthy, happier relationships. And that's what we teach military families every single day.
Okay.
How to be aware of what they feel, how to be aware of what they're doing, and where do their thoughts come from that impact what they do and what they feel. And they absolutely get it because they understand movement, they understand transition, and it works.
But it's how do they change their thinking or their emotion or recognizing their behavior and how that's all tied together. Can you give us a concrete example?
I was thinking of something earlier today before this. I'll make this one simple. I was working with a couple, and he was always angry about the fact that he did not want to leave his family. I mean, he loved the idea of serving his country. He knew that's what he signed up to do, but he was the type of man who wanted every single opportunity that he had to just be and enjoy his family. And so we had to dig deep and find out in his memory banks, in his cognitions, in his brain, where did he get the idea that it was so important for him not to miss any of those key moments in his family's life. And it ultimately, once we got to that, it was based upon the fact that, as you can imagine, there was no father figure in the home to give him the basis of that type of interaction for himself. So in his brain, he had a chip, and the book talks about this. He has a memory chip that said, I will be a better dad to my children than my father was to me. So once we got to that memory chip in his brain and what language he had created around that and the emotion that was attached to that, he could breathe and say, I understand it. And we built in him more memory chips to say, but you're doing that. Every chance that you had, you're out throwing the baseball, you're going to the school, you're involved in the day-to-day homework of your children, all those things, you already added memory chips in their brain. The book talks about this, that says to them, my dad is here for me. So when we worked that with him, we ultimately had a conversation with him and his dad. It was probably some of the best work I've ever done in a multi-generational environment, because I was able at some point in time to help him to reconnect with his father and really to show him the relationship that he had with his own children. And once he figured out that was the fear, is that he wasn't doing that and he wasn't going to be that, and then built around that, this is what you are doing, and then heal the relationship with him and his dad, it was probably some of the best work I've ever done. But he got it.
That must give you goosebumps when you think about being able to do that deeper work. And, you know, what I heard from that story is that you were also helping him change not only the memory chip from what he had, you know, defined, but it was helping him to reshift or change his story, his meaning behind all of that. And once he understood how it connected to his original memory chip, as you're calling it, it sounds like you were able to have him come to some level of peace by changing the meaning and changing the story of what that means to be a good father, all those examples that you just gave. And I remember in reading your book that when you talk about, you know, where do the blocks lay? Do they lay ABC or BA or BAC or CBA? And there's different ways in which people naturally fall under, but if they're not aware of all the blocks, like all the blocks are there, but if they're not cognizant of it or aware of it or utilize them, then that's where, unhealthy, relationships and how we engage can come about. So I thought that was really interesting in the book, and all the ways that these ABCs could be laid out and helping to shift change the meaning in the story of some of these beliefs that come from that.
Well done, Patty. That's the book in essence right there. It truly is. You know, we talk about it. It really is as simple as ABC. It encompasses every relationship that we're in. First, the relationship with ourselves. Then the second, relationship with our most significant others. Now, our family members, of course, that could be our family of origin, the family we came out of, or the family of procreation, which means the family that I'm raising, my 4 beautiful children and my husband and our puppy. Or the relationship that I have with my friends. Every interaction that I have encompasses the ABC. Right now, just the idea of having this conversation with you makes me feel good. The fact that you read the book and I hear you speaking about the book gives me the understanding that, yes, she got this, she got it, So that's a good thing for us. And it's a very easy read. It's a very simple read. And anybody can practice the ABCs of change.
So let me clarify for listeners. You actually have the book, The ABCs of Change, and then you also have the ABCs for military families. Is that right?
That's correct. The original book was called The ABCs of Change, 3 Building Blocks to Happy Relationships, like you said. But as I was writing and people read it and thought, oh, this is a great book, can you write another one? And so then the second one released was about military families. Certainly we're working on the sequel, The ABCs of Leadership. Are you a very, proactive leader? Are you a very emotional leader? And what type of folks will follow you depending upon what type of leader you are? And where can you find out where your strengths and your weaknesses lie in that? So we're now working on the ABCs of leadership. And the final one in this series will be called the ABCs of Parenting. What you think you know and what your children will teach you that you don't know. That's the tag on that particular book. So I'm really having a lot of fun with that. My children certainly have taught me a lot about myself and how I perceive myself versus how they perceive me. And there's a whole chapter in the book about how do you want to be perceived versus the way people perceive you, and is that an opportunity for change?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you're doing fabulous work. I can't wait to see the other ABC series of books as you continue to publish them. Looking forward to that. You know, as we start to close our show here, we usually give our listeners some encouragement, some motivation, and a call to action. So do you have an assignment for them this week?
Yes, I do. The ABCs of Change is about movement. It's about gaining traction, and if you figure it out, which you will, and you'll blog it in, you'll tell us there's only one of those ABCs that spells a word that creates movement. So that's my first challenge for you, is to stack those building blocks up and see which one actually spells a word. And the second piece of the call to action is to do something about it. And something simple as spending concrete time with your family, gather together, doing something that's important to all members of the family if you can get to that. So the first thing is to figure out which one of those spells a word, and then the second thing is to put that into place by doing something within your family that everybody can agree to do together.
Okay, and just to clarify, when you say to stack the ABC till it spells a word, can you clarify that?
Oh, that's a good question. So there's only 3 building blocks, right?
Right,
so
ABC.
If I stack them up and I go ABC, then I can stack, and then I can change it. Then I can stack them up to say ACB. Then I can change it again, and I can stack them up at least 4 different ways. And there's only 6 that we talk about in the book, and only one of the 6 spells a word.
Ah, okay. Very, very good. I'm glad you said that. All right, so you have your assignment, and where can folks find you and find information about the book?
Well, our website is zwgroup.net. We changed it, because Zeitgeist is such a long word. So instead of saying our full company name, we just shortened it up to Z as in zebra or Z as in Zeitgeist, wgroup.net. And you can certainly order the book offline.
Okay, very good. And like you said, Patricia, listeners, the book is a very easy read. It's a smaller, shorter book, and it is packed with powerful stuff around the ABCs and the stacking, as she's mentioning. It'll help you also identify very clearly what style or if you will, what order in which you tend to be dominant in, and to really raise some awareness about what building blocks you might be missing from your stack that you're not utilizing or aware of. Patricia, I'm so excited that you've been on the program and could do this for us. Is there a final message that you want to leave with listeners?
Yes, I do. I did say that now that I am a mom of someone who serves our country, I just want to say I'm so proud of my son, and I just love the essence of what he does for our country. I know he does too. And I just want to thank all military families, past, present, and future, for what they do for our country. We could not do it without you. We recognize that you are the cornerstone of this country, for the freedom that we have, for the liberties that we enjoy. And I just want to encourage all of us who are military family members or those who have an opportunity to support military family members, please do so. Please be honoring of who they are, what they do. And when you get a chance, just say thank you.
Blessed. I'm so glad that you said that. Thank you so much, Patricia, for being with us.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you for listening to the Texas Conflict Coach. We hope you've enjoyed the program. You can find over 300 podcasts archived to listen at your own convenience at texasconflictcoach.com or download the podcast at iTunes or Stitcher Radio. To learn about upcoming radio programs and resources, sign up for our monthly e-newsletter.